You know the classic story, right? The hero faces a challenge, gets the magic sword, defeats the main villain, and everyone lives happily ever after. That's the movie version. That's the script they want you to watch. But what about your life? Your life isn't a movie. Just write 444 in the comments and subscribe to continue your story. A completely unique, messy, unpredictable, and scary journey. For years, you've been compared to others, told to follow in the footsteps of the greats of the past, the so-called chosen ones. But if you're honest, deep down, none of those stories ever quite fit you. You felt you had to deviate, make a sharp turn onto a completely unmarked path. You had to find a solution that didn't yet exist. And what you just did, that big personal leap, the decision you made, the line you drew, was an unprecedented move. What made you the chosen one wasn't prophecy, but pure, unwavering will. For the next hour or so, we will examine this great achievement, this moment that no one has yet congratulated you on. We will examine the 3 biggest mistakes made by previous chosen ones, and how you escaped the same fate with single action. Then we will discuss the final hidden challenge awaiting immediately after this unprecedented victory. The biggest challenge for any chosen one isn't the initial monster or the evil overlord. That's just a test of physical strength or basic courage. The real, soul-crushing problem is the curse of repetition. Think about it in simple terms. If you look back at all the heroes, all the great people who were supposed to change the world, the ones who had all the talent, all the tools, and all the opportunity, why did so many of them burn out, crash, or just fade into mediocrity? Because they all fell into the same trap. They took the established, approved, and predictable route. The problem is that the system, whatever system you're fighting, whether it's a bad industry, a toxic family pattern, or just your own ingrained self-doubt, that system already figured out the old heroes. Imagine a castle defended by walls. The last 3 heroes all tried to blast through the west wall. The castle guards, seeing this pattern, simply rebuilt the west wall stronger each time and put all their best archers there. The previous chosen ones were brave, yes, but they were predictable. They were solving yesterday's problem with yesterday's approved solution. They were too busy fulfilling the prophecy to actually look for a solution. The challenge you just overcame was this curse of repetition. You didn't just solve a problem. You solved a problem that was designed to be unsolvable by the standard hero methods. The unprecedented thing you did, that giant move, that hard pivot, it wasn't just hard, it was original. You didn't charge the west wall. You built a hidden tunnel under the north gate. Or maybe you didn't attack the castle at all. Maybe you convinced the townspeople to stop sending them food. That level of strategic, unconventional thinking is what sets you apart. The world, the system, the opposition, they were ready for the typical hero move. They had their defenses preset for a brave, predictable fool. But they were completely, utterly unprepared for someone who said, "I'm not playing by your rules anymore." This is the key distinction. Previous chosen ones focused on being strong. You focus on being smart and, most importantly, original. They followed the script. You rewrote the genre. And because no one saw this move coming, the entire system is now scrambling. They're looking for you at the west wall. But you are already inside the gates. Your challenge was achieving something that was, by all established metrics, logically impossible. And you did it by refusing to honor the methods of the failures who came before you. Let's unpack this unprecedented achievement by looking at the 3 major traps that caught all the previous chosen ones, and how your unique action allowed you to skip them entirely. This will help you understand the true power of what you just accomplished and why it separates you from every hero myth you've ever heard. 1. The trap of the mentor's limits, breaking the mold. Every hero story features a wise old mentor, right? Obi-Wan, Dumbledore, Yoda, they teach the hero the ancient ways, the secret techniques, the sacred rules. The problem is, the mentor's wisdom is always tied to the mentor's past failures. The past chosen ones who failed didn't fail because they were bad students. They failed because they were too good at following their mentor's advice. The mentor's advice, by definition, only covers problems that the mentor encountered and survived. It's a handbook for the last war, not the current one. The moment the current war throws up a new, unexpected challenge, The mentor's teaching becomes a limitation, not a tool. Previous heroes, when faced with an obstacle, would pause and ask, "What would my mentor do?" Or, "What does the ancient scroll say?" They were seeking approval and precedent. They were prioritizing tradition over innovation. And that's exactly what the opposition was counting on. If they could just create a problem the mentor never solved, the hero will be paralyzed by the lack of a known answer. What you just did, that unprecedented move, was a moment you threw the ancient scroll out the window. It was a moment you faced a problem and realized, there is no advice for this. No one has ever been here before. If I follow the old way, I will fail in a new, spectacular fashion. Maybe your mentor told you to always trust a specific type of person, but your unique move was realizing that the solution required you to distrust that entire category. Maybe the rules said you could never merge two opposing forces, but your massive leap was realizing that merging them was the only way to generate the power needed for the breakthrough. You didn't just ignore the mentor. You transcended the entire framework of their teaching. You became your own first mentor for the new reality you just created. This is a massive, often painful break, because it feels like you're betraying history. But you weren't betraying history. You were finally starting it. You moved from being a student of the past to being the author of the future. This act of intellectual independence is the first pillar of your unprecedented success. You are the chosen one who knows that the best advice for tomorrow hasn't been written yet. 2. The trap of the moral high ground, refusing the obvious weapon. The second trap is the most insidious because it feels like a virtue, the obsession with being perfectly moral. In every story, the hero has to be the good guy. They have to play fair, follow the rules, and never stoop to the enemy's level. This sounds noble, but in a true life or death scenario against an evil that doesn't play fair, being obsessed with a moral high ground often means you fight with one hand tied behind your back. Previous chosen ones would always refuse the dark artifact, the forbidden knowledge, or the unconventional, messy solution. They were too afraid of becoming what they fought. They prioritized their image as a hero over the necessity of winning. And guess what? The enemy knew this. The enemy would specifically design challenges where the only effective, winning move was the one the hero was morally conditioned to reject. The enemy would leave the obvious, messy, powerful weapon right there, knowing the previous heroes would never dare touch it. Your unprecedented move was about strategic ruthlessness. This doesn't mean you became evil. It means you chose effectiveness over appearance. You chose the messy, complicated, ethically gray solution that actually worked over the clean, pretty, but ultimately failing solution that everyone would applaud you for. Maybe the move was cutting off a toxic relationship, even though society said you had to honor that family bond forever. Maybe it was refusing to share the credit, even though the team demanded it, because you knew the vision would be diluted. Maybe it was using a business tactic that was completely legal but felt slightly cold or aggressive. You picked up the forbidden weapon, the necessary hard choice, and you use it to win. This takes a different kind of courage. The courage to be misunderstood, the courage to look like the bad guy to save the whole operation. You understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your mission is the hardest thing you can do for your personal reputation. You traded applause for victory. This commitment to winning over appearance is what the chosen ones before you could never manage, and it's why you broke their cycle of failure. You realize that true morality isn't about following arbitrary rules. It's about successfully completing the mission you were chosen for. 3. The trap of the perfect timing, ignoring the ugly window. The third trap is the failure to act in the ugly window of opportunity. Every previous hero waited for the perfect time. They waited for the sun to align, for the prophecy to be completely fulfilled, for their strength meter to be at 100%. They waited for the moment that felt right, the moment that was cinematic and grand. They were waiting for the scene change, the epic music, the perfect cue. The enemy, knowing this, simply ensured that the perfect time never came. They introduced constant chaos, small distractions, and relentless attrition to keep the hero in a state of perpetual almost ready. The previous chosen ones were always waiting for the moment of maximum confidence, maximum readiness, and maximum external validation. Your unprecedented move, however, was about seizing the ugly window. The ugly window is the moment that feels terrible. It's the 3 a.m. decision. It's the time when you're 60% ready, totally exhausted, and every voice in your head is screaming abort. It's the moment that lacks drama, lacks external support, and lacks certainty. It's the time when you feel the absolute least like a hero. The ugly window is messy, inconvenient, and terrifying, and that's exactly why it's the only time the enemy isn't looking. Your massive leap, that thing no one else attempted, was acting in that ugly window. You didn't wait for permission or perfection. You saw the tiny, messy crack in the enemy's armor, and you moved with speed and decisiveness, while everyone else was still waiting for the daylight and the sound of trumpets. This is the difference between an actor in a story and an author of reality. The actor waits for their line. The author writes the scene. You authored the scene. You didn't react to a situation. You created a new one. This is the hardest thing to explain to people because they look at your success and assume it was effortless or lucky. They don't see the ugly window you jumped through. They don't see the fear, the doubt, or the sheer exhaustion you felt when you made the decision. They see the result and assume you were confident. You weren't. You were simply committed. That commitment to seize the ugly window, despite all internal and external resistance, is the move that truly separates you. You succeeded because you were willing to look foolish, exhausted, and uncertain in the moment of your greatest action. To fully understand the gravity of your action, let's explore the downstream effects of these 3 avoided traps. The previous chosen ones left behind a legacy of failed attempts, a trail of cautionary tales that the opposition used to create an even stronger defense against you. Every time one of them failed, the enemy would collect the data, analyze their weaknesses, and reinforce the system. They thought they had perfected the defense against the chosen one type. But what they failed to account for was the possibility of a chosen one who would learn not just from their own mistakes, but from the entire collected history of failure. Your strategy was not based on prophecy. It was based on data analysis of past defeats. You realized that the only way to win was to find a solution that was entirely illogical within the enemy's framework. You didn't just win, you rendered their entire defensive strategy obsolete. This, more than anything, is why your move is unprecedented. It's a victory that doesn't just solve the problem, but fundamentally redefines the rules of engagement for all future conflicts. This deep, strategic insight is the true mark of the victorious chosen one. You've made the unprecedented move. You've won the battle by breaking all the old rules. But here is the most critical, terrifying part of the entire journey. This is where 99% of the successful heroes who did manage to win still completely fell apart. The climax is not the moment of victory. The climax is the silence after the shout. When you finally achieve that massive, unique breakthrough, when you defeat the monster in the unconventional way, when you seize the ugly window, when you successfully utilize the messy solution, what happens? Silence. The world doesn't erupt in cheers. The headlines don't praise your unique strategy. The people you just saved often don't understand the complexity of what you did. They might look at your messy solution and say, "Wow, that was crude," or "That wasn't how the hero did it last time." Because you didn't follow the script, they don't know how to file your victory. The final test of the chosen one is the test of self-validation. The pressure that follows your unique win is subtle, but overwhelming. It's the pressure to justify your unprecedented move to a world that still operates on the old rules. It's the pressure to apologize for the mess you made, to explain why you didn't listen to the mentor, to defend the difficult, lonely choice you made in the ugly window. Every previous hero, after their hard-won victory, craved external validation. They needed the crowd to confirm, "Yes, you are the hero." And when the crowd didn't fully understand or was slow to respond, the hero would start to doubt their own power. They would start to feel guilty for not being the clean hero. They would try to revert to the old, approved methods for the next challenge, thinking, maybe next time I'll do it the way they want. And that hesitation, that second-guessing, that desire for approval is what destroyed them. They won the battle but lost their revolutionary originality. They became predictable again. Your final moment, the true climax, is the moment you stand in that silence and refuse to explain. It is the moment you look at the successful outcome of your messy, unprecedented choice and say, "The result speaks for itself. My inner truth is all the validation I need." You don't need the mentor's nod. You don't need the crowd's cheer. You don't need a clean narrative. You have the victory. The evidence of your rightness is the fact that you succeeded where everyone else failed. This is the ultimate separation. You transition from a hero who seeks external praise to a sovereign who defines their own reality. Your power is no longer conditional on public opinion or historical precedent. It is self-contained. The victory is the proof. The silence is a reward. This is the terrifying freedom of being truly unprecedented. You are now writing the first chapter of a story that has no genre yet. The enemy thought they had perfected their defense against the hero. They never prepared for the arrival of the creator. You are no longer just fighting for a cause. You are designing the future. This act of self-sovereignty is the most powerful, most dangerous, and most terrifying choice you will ever make. It makes you unstoppable because a mind that doesn't rely on external validation is a mind that can never be controlled. The crown is no longer a burden of prophecy. It is the emblem of your self-defined power. Let's bring this home. You did the impossible. You broke the mold of failure that trapped every chosen one before you. You won because you saw the 3 traps and avoided them. You rejected the mentor's limits and became your own ultimate authority. You refused a moral high ground trap and chose strategic ruthlessness over superficial appearance. You ignored the perfect timing trap and seized the ugly window of opportunity. The final challenge now is to survive the silence after the shout. Do not let the world's confusion about your success become your own self-doubt. You won by being original and unconventional. Do not now retreat into being predictable just to make the old world feel comfortable. Your unprecedented move didn't just win a battle. It started a new history. Embrace the silence, trust the victory, and prepare for the next challenge knowing that you are the only one on earth who knows the path forward. The path is yours because you were the only one brave enough to invent it. If you're ready to embrace the lonely path of true originality, watch the next video right here.